So we begin our session as usual with a small prayer for student and teacher. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditam Mastoma Viddhishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May we have illumined studies. May we not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So this is Vedanta Series question and answer. I do have some questions lined up. There are about 3 questions. So I'll start with the questions that I have, and these are from a few weeks ago. So one question was, in enjoyment of work, 2 things are there in this questioner's experience. There has to be a goal set, a purpose, a deep awareness of the context of the work, and some steadfastness is required, and in order to overcome obstacles. The questioner asks, in terms of our maturity or spiritual evolution, we need to choose our goals in order to motivate us. And now the question comes, how do we decide the nature of the goals for our work? I think that's how the question goes. And another question has also come up, which is Maya and Mahamaya, is this the same? Is it a form of God? Okay, I write that question down. Second question that was asked is, or the third question, because we take that one as the second one, is the question of these 2 paths that were mentioned in one of our talks. And I'm not exactly sure what the question is. Maybe the questioner can ask that question again. But one aspect of the question would be, how do we shift the mind? The problem is that the experience of the truth will take place over a long period of time, and also how to overcome self-doubt. Maybe that question can be clarified a little bit more. So, where to begin? Let's start off with our central goal and purpose. We always have to keep in mind our central purpose in life is the realization of the truth already existent, otherwise phrased as the perfection within, or the vision of God. The phrase will differ depending on our understanding or approach. A devotee of God, somebody who wants to develop love of God, will naturally want to be close and ultimately united with that person's beloved. This vision of God will be the central aim of that person's life. But that central realization is also the realization of the fundamental truth that never changes. It is the culmination of perfection. So our goal and purpose in life will be, as Swami Vivekananda declares in his Raja Yoga, each soul is potentially divine. We begin off with that statement. There has to be some understanding that beyond the normal, everyday operational work that we do, there is some central entity that doesn't move, doesn't change, that is your real divine self. And that has to be central to any understanding. And sometimes it's difficult to grasp that, because the normal way in which we operate in the world isn't like that at all. It's about divisions, it's about personalities, It's about all kinds of reactions. It's about social interactions. It's about daily problems to do with finance, to do with domestic life. And so the world, even from very small, looks as if it is a combination of interactive individualities, separate people and places and events. We're operating within scenes that create some problems for us. So one central question we can ask is, how can we maintain a set of equilibrium, a certain equilibrium amidst all the different changes that we have to manage? And everybody has essentially to work. The third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is all to do with this subject. So the path of knowledge is one path. It's called Jnana Yoga. It's meant for people with subtle intellect and keen understanding. But for the vast majority of us, we find delight in work. Or some people find delight in work. Some people find work a drudgery, in which case their mental health will suffer, their physical health will also suffer as a result. If you're doing a job or a work that has no fulfillment in life, that has no essential enjoyment in it, and ultimately no sense of fulfillment, the motivation for such work will not only be less, but it'll probably be non-existent and create a lot of anxiety for us. We're doing something on a day-to-day basis, and we are preferring to do something else, something that is more enjoyable, something maybe that we would do in our leisure time. And so this way of dealing with work is called karma yoga. From kr, action, to act, to do. And every action has a law within it that an action has an equal and opposite reaction and has a causality to it, which we are generally described as sowing and reaping. What we sow, we reap in agricultural terms. We don't reap anything that we don't sow. And so the word karma has two inherent meanings: to act and to do, and to reap the consequences of these actions. And it is seen also in a causal relationship not to be confined to the day of birth and the day of death. These are just various pauses or various commas, if you like, in the whole literature of life that goes on page after page after page. If it's the same old thing, then at some point or other, we have to realize, without changing work itself, we have to use the process of work in order to get out of this cycle and move towards our own inherent freedom, which is our goal. So Swami Vivekananda says each soul is potentially divine. We have to realize that. The goal is to manifest this divinity from within, not from without, not from outside. In the beginning of devotional life, we might think that there is an entity outside ourselves. And then it is to resort to that as a problem solver from time to time, the kind of crude religion that has a great merit in as much as some good is being done somewhere. Some advancement is being made. But unfortunately, it doesn't carry through in the sense of fulfillment, because it is a plus one minus one balancing act, because if we want something, it also means we haven't got it. Plus one minus one, we don't go anywhere. And the frustration and lack of fulfillment will continue until we realize that both of these paths, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, that is karma as now a path toward a unity, both of these lead to the same goal that Vivekananda has described. The goal is to manifest this divinity from within. And so, first, for any advancement comes mental purity. And if any activity is not giving us the condition of mental purity, then either our attitude has to change or the work has to change. Now look at it this way. Each person is individually designed, as it were. We have within us a certain skill, a certain expertise. It's as if we were born in a unique way to fit into the structure of life and do something that is unique. That should give us huge motivation because it's part of a divine plan. This unfoldment of our potential is that the unfoldment process itself will happen in different ways for different people, according to our individual talents and abilities, our likes, our dislikes, our propensities. And the structure is built to be physically suitable for it, to be geographically suitable for it, and to be genetically suitable for it, and also to be mentally, intellectually, and emotionally suitable for it. So we have a different view from this understanding. We can imagine maybe we are an angel waiting in the wings to come and play the divine play with great joy, using all the abilities that we have. And if we do this, then things will be smooth for us. If we do all this work to the best of the ability, if we play our part very well, we will also enjoy it. That means no further motivation is necessary. The chances are what you're meant to do is the thing that you love the most, the thing that you enjoy the most, because you're going with the flow. You're not going counter to your natural tendencies. And so this karma yoga is the way generally for all of us. And the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita deals with the subject. It deals with it by mentioning this word yajna. Yajna is a technical term. In the ancient days, yajna was the only form of worship. It consisted of prayers accompanied by a fire. When I go to London, as I will in early November, I am going there specifically, among other things, apart from meeting a particular group who are interested in the subject of yoga, and they're meeting me and being introduced to classical yoga for the first time. I'm there to do the Kali Puja. And in the Kali Puja, two sections are there. The classical Tantric Puja is there, consisting of worship to our holy trio, Ram Krishna, Holy Mother, and so on. And then followed by worship of the Divine Mother, followed by a havan, a yajna, a fire ceremony, a fire sacrifice. It's a similar sacrifice I did at Durga Puja for devotees at the VHCCI during Ashtami day, the Ashtami Puja day, and I was requested to do a puja, to do a havan there. Simple ceremony, only using the basic elements, oblations of melted butter going into a sacred fire. So this was the form of yajna. This was karma, karma yoga, that is ritualistic action, action nonetheless. And fire symbolizes the divine who leads the devotee onward and upward and forward. And this kind of of ritual, any kind of ritual, done with the attitude of worship, that is of non-demanding love, combining now bhakti yoga and karma yoga, becomes bhakti, becomes worship. And when we do it with this attitude, this action, any action, loses its binding power. If we apply it to every action we do in daily life, every action done with this attitude, worshipful attitude, all the actions lose their binding powers. Bearing in mind, every action binds us, because every action that is done without this worshipful attitude, with a non-demanding attitude, is karma yoga. Without this, a demanding attitude, either for a result somewhere, always relating to self-interest somewhere, is not the condition that is required to purify the mind. And it is only by purifying the mind, by introducing the element of sattva, purity, in everything that we do. When I was being educated in secondary school, I went to a Jesuit school. And there, on every page, we had to write AMDG. In Latin, it means for the greater glory of God. So that every activity that we start begins with some kind of prayer to cultivate this mental attitude. Because even the havan, even the yajna, in the ritualistic sense that we do, is preceded by a set of purificatory actions. And the havan today, of course, is a mix of tantric worship and classical Vedic worship. But still, some purification has to be there. Purification of the mind, purification of all the elements and ingredients that go into the fire. And we replicate this every time we eat, considering then that even eating food, sacred food, is some form of yajna. That is why we precede the eating with that passage from the stanza from the Bhagavad Gita, which is familiar to you. Brahmapanam, Brahmahavya, and so on. See, that Brahman, that highest ideal, highest principle, is the offering that we make. And the only difference is we're making the offering of the divine and sacred ingredients into Vaishvanara, that is, the entity that is keeping your digestive fire going. Those people who know me know I'm dead set against the imbibing of anything cold, and particularly ice cream, because the poor Lord of the universe is trying to digest your food, keeping the fire alive, and we are doing our best to douse it out. In fact, at the end of a havan, part of the ritual is to take curd and to douse the fire out. Take something cold, something that mitigates against the power of fire, and put the fire out. So if we learn just systematically in a delightful way, firstly, that all our energy that we use for work does not belong to us. It's only a convenience phrase to say our energy. It's not ours at all. We are using borrowed energy. Divine energy is supplied to us, giving us the freedom to use or misuse it. And the use or misuse of it comes at an early stage when we make a decision. What will we do with this energy? We can steer it in one way, what we might call toward this goal of perfection, or steer it in another way, allow it to lapse into enjoyment. This has been described as this preferable and pleasurable path in the Kathopanishad, also in the Bhagavad Gita. And I mentioned it some time ago when we studied on Saturday the Kathopanishad, mentioning that these two paths are available to us. Second by second, they're available to us. Will we engage in action which brings more enjoyment, material enjoyment to us? No doubt, it's very nice and it lasts for a short term. Or will we make a long-term investment and steer energy toward purification of the mind? This is the preferable way, which in the beginning is a struggle because the most obvious avenue is to enjoy the world in front. But the maximum enjoyment of that world is when we appreciate the depth of what is there behind everything. When we see the substance of it, the Lord of the universe, it adds a tremendous sweetness to it. That is, Food enjoyed is enjoyed even more. Sights that are seen are enjoyed even more because we see the divine there, within and flowing through everything. A tree does not just become a tree. It becomes a divine entity standing there, the Lord of the universe, dressed in this form, with all the functionality which is evidence of divinity, all the manifested cleverness and complexity that we see in nature around us. And we glory in this, leading us to assert what a glory, as opposed to a self-centered attitude, what a pity. One is positive, one is negative. And positive thinking will always produce a positive result. So, to lose action's binding power, we have to always bear in mind these three potentialities, what we call gunas. Gunas, binding elements, no doubt, ropes literally. And two of them will bind us fast in the bondage of ignorance. This will be called tamas and rajas. If we want peace of mind and we decide to get it, we will stop the flow of activity. This we call tamas. It means I want peace, not out of a spirit of generosity, but I want peace for myself. May people stop arguing around me. May wars please stop. May I not listen to bad news because this gives me peace of mind. No, it simply buries your head in the sand. It makes you withdraw. Now the Bhagavad Gita is very significant because Arjuna wants to use this approach. He wants to do away with his action, the action that he was born to do, the action that he is skilled in doing. And this individual skill is called Swadharma. That is, that regulates everything in a harmonizing way that only you can do. And if you try and do something else, says the third chapter, then it doesn't augur well for you. So there are divine creative principles. We can call these, in theology, devas. Unfortunately, mistranslated as gods, leading people to conclude that the system is polytheistic. No, these are creative forces, creative principles, literally effulgent ones, shining ones. And they all act in an interrelated manner. They respond to our human needs that are put out in our intentions and our actions. Our actions are simply a concretization of our intentions and come out as ritual. This is what is behind ritualistic action. So in the early days, it was understood, it was broken down. What society requires is food. Food comes from abundant rains. Abundant rains, fertility of the soil, and so on. These all come from this supply or the source of supply that we can tap into and mobilize these divine effulgent ones, these energies. And those who enjoy these gifts, which are supplied, without giving a thought to where they come from, without regarding these divine graces with a sense of thankfulness, are in this third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita called thieves. You're stealing something which is not your own and not even being grateful for it, not even having a sense of thankfulness. But of course, those people who are fully spiritually evolved, self-realized souls, they are really in a category of their own. And for them, the self is ever full, ever free, and it constitutes their soul enjoyment. They no longer have a taste for all the objects of the world or all the internal satisfactions that senses bring. And so that doesn't mean to say they don't become active. They become increasingly active and more efficient in their work, because work is worship for them. An example of this would be King Janaka, and this is mentioned also in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And nobody could be busier than the ancient kings. The ancient kings in India, for example, would have been sole rulers. In the Artha Shastra, we see the typical day of a monarch, and he is busy from morning to night and beyond, with 1,000 things to do. A sole ruler, no doubt, taking the advice of a council of advisors, but being solely responsible, an executive president, if you will, an executive monarch, taking tough decisions on a day-to-day basis. But the Emperor Janaka was an enlightened rishi. He worked incessantly for the welfare of the world. And of course, it's the very nature of spiritually perfected people to do this. So what eminent people do, we tend to copy. And so, just as we become an example, if you lead a life and you're in a prominent position, then you set the tone. And so Arjuna also is encouraged to set the tone, not to encourage his subjects or his other people to be lazy. Rama in the Ramayana also sets the example, putting his personal, deep-rooted feelings, subduing these in order for the greater welfare of his subjects, and setting the example even in the face of unfair or unjust criticism. And so to engage oneself untiringly in action was Swami Vivekananda's call. A question arose here at the Kretz ashram last night. So you see, Sri Ramakrishna would have had some criticism for people who established hospitals and schools and did philanthropic work for the good of humanity. He would have said, no, you have to actually realize God. Then the question arose, but Swami Vivekananda was all about social action, uplifting people, uplifting people's condition, working hard for the welfare of all beings. And in the beginning may have come under some criticism about it, because the traditional monastic life is monastic life that was oriented toward contemplation, meditation, spiritual pursuits like this, as something that in the Western monastic life is the Cistercian life, where monks don't speak, don't talk. Of course, there's a very famous story, you may know it, of the man who joined the monastery, Cistercian monastery. They're not permitted to speak except for once a year. And he stayed there 3 years. First year, he was only allowed to say a few words. He said, water cold, no heating. And his conversation was duly noted. Second year, he was allowed to break his silence. He said, the food is terrible. The third year, the abbot said, I'm afraid you have to leave. You've done nothing for 3 years but complain. So we tend to complain constantly. We're very good at complaining. Very, very poor at recognizing the optimistic, beautiful aspect of life itself. And then this stimulates us to enjoy our activities fully, being immersed in our activities totally. And was there any incompatibility with Swami Vivekananda's emphasis on service to humanity, welfare of all beings? We can see in the 3rd chapter here that these enlightened beings spontaneously work for the welfare of all. Was there any paradox between Swami Vivekananda's view and Ramakrishna's view? Not at all. Because Ramakrishna understood there's one central goal in life. And when we engage in karma yoga, the real beneficiary is ourselves, because we are purifying our own minds by doing it. And we have to thank the beggar for being present, that we may serve him, that we may serve, more literally, God dressed up in this form. Lord, there you are. You have given me the opportunity to serve you, to worship you. Namaste. This is the secret. This is the key to all spiritual healing. Somebody whose recorded miracles are there, the Lord Jesus. And we see that his different way of looking at things effected a change on the other side in the material world, coordinating these creative forces. How so? Standing where cosmic mind stands, and revaluing life, he sees the lame man not as lame. Outwardly, yes, but inwardly, he sees there the perfection that sits within, the Lord of the universe shining there, full and free and perfect, nothing to change, nothing to criticize, only adoration. And so when our penetrating vision moves to that level, then we become overwhelmed with the glory that stands before us, the Lord of the universe in fullness and glory. How can he be defective? How can he be lame? And that moves itself forward and mobilizes all the creative forces to make a change, and a transformation takes place, and the lame man walks, and the blind man sees, and the dead man awakens. So the self, it fundamentally has no action within it. And all activities are carried out by these three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And rajas is full of activity which is bound by self-centeredness. This is what Ramakrishna was referring to. Building hospitals and colleges, thinking that you are going to change society. Yes, if properly motivated, it's good, it's not bad. But it is also binding, because your egocentricity is involved in it. And we have to go to another level. We have to go to a level of sattva, which is all positive, which is all divine, which is all purity, and no self-centeredness involved whatsoever. So the mind should be kept centered in the divine self. That is the key. We should always try and tune it to the glory of the divine, constantly do it. And in this itself is a kind of divine game that we are playing. And therefore we have to adopt a sporting attitude toward it. So all action becomes worship, and therefore becomes a delight. And so in choosing goals, first of all, in choosing our goals and our purpose, we don't really have to make a choice. The choice is made for us, because our inherent matching skills and abilities are there. And so we have what is called a swadharma. We have to learn the art of making our attention stay lovingly on the self, moment by moment, all the time, lovingly on God, moment by moment. As Brother Lawrence would say, practicing the presence of God, practicing the presence of the divine. New people, objects, and situations, matching our thoughts and ideals, will come to us, revealing our purpose, revealing our goal, revealing our direction. We have to learn the art of listening to it. Thoughts act, we have to understand, like an irresistible suction, and they condense our internal words and our concepts and our intentions into their physical equivalents. So, in terms, therefore, of our work and determining our goal and our purpose, I hope that I have dealt with that question. Then how to decide these nature of goals? I think we have already worked with that. We've already answered that question. And I think we have also asked the question of this perfection versus enjoyment, or this preferable versus the pleasurable. And how do we shift the mind? It's interesting that the questioner used the word shift. When you drive a car, a manual car, then you have to learn to shift the gears. When you notice that things are in the bottom gear, that is the lowest gear, the gear of laziness, lethargy, non-interest, disinterest. You have to see how opposites look the same. That the detachment of spirituality and the disinterestedness of laziness look outwardly to be the same, but they are radically different. We have to shift, we have to mobilize our activity, body and mind, up to the next level, rajasic level. We have to put energy into it. But both of these are egoistic. Recognizing this, we artfully learn to shift our gear to a higher thing, recognizing any condition at any moment in time. What condition is the mind in right now? Oh, I see. Very good. Let us now engage noble values. Let us repeat: strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony, like that. Fill the mind, saturate it with loving thoughts, thoughts of divine, using creative imagination. Imagine God and all his angels and glory standing there. Shift your attitude toward adoration. And doing this, we practice this constantly. There's no holiday for it. Spiritual life is a question of managing it constantly. Let's just see the Bhagavad Gita, the references to these things that I've just mentioned. So, the karmanam anarambhan, by merely abstaining from action, man does not attain freedom from action. By merely renouncing, one does not reach perfection. And truly, no one can ever remain without performing action, even for a moment. It's not possible. For everyone is forcibly made to act under the influence of what? These three evolutionary forces that we call nature, prakriti. Under the influence of the gunas, born of prakriti. Karyate hiya vasaha karma sarvaha prakriti jaya gunaha. And then, what about the deluded man, who outwardly restrain their organs, but inwardly the mind dwells on the sense objects? Is a hypocrite. It's easy not to murder somebody. It's not so easy not to think about it. But it is the thinking that is the difficulty. We have to make the mind pure. And then he excels, O Arjun, says Krishna, who controls the senses with the mind and directs the organs of action to the path of work, but without attachment. Attachment to what? Looking for a result. So we have to take all the motive away, ultimately, other than the one, that the goal of life is there to manifest this divinity from within. That is the central goal, that is the central purpose of life, and everything else rallies around it. Everything else is designed to move toward that. So we don't perform anything different. The wise person doesn't suddenly develop a halo around his head and look different. In Holy Mother's language, you don't develop horns on your head. You look like everybody else. You work like everybody else. You act like everybody else. But internally, there's always a shift. Internally, it's always pure and full and free. Internally, there's always an attitude of adoration. The mind is always being tuned into the cosmic mind. Thy will be done. Thy individual will is always attuned to the divine will. And so, in this world, all actions, says Krishna, except those performed for the sake of yajna, are the cause of bondage. In other words, every activity has to be a yajna, has to be a worship. Work becomes worship. And he says, therefore, son of Kunti, perform action. For what sake? For what purpose? For the sake of the Lord, free of attachment. In the beginning, having created mankind together with sacrifice, Prajapati, that is the Lord of all creatures, said, by this shall you prosper. By this, by what? By yajna, by this worship of adoration. Let this be your cow of plenty, yielding all your wants. And please, these effulgent beings, these creative forces, and may those creative forces then be gracious to you by bringing food, rain, and so on and so forth. In other words, good prosperity to yourself and everyone. Prosperity is the effect of it. Goodness is the effect of it. If you want to change the world, change your thinking. And in changing your thinking, it has the capacity to change the world around you, because you're mobilizing these devas, these creative forces that emanate from one central cosmic mind. And then it's mentioned this Taya Datan Apradhayi Pyo Yo Bhunte Stena Eva Saha. He is truly a thief who enjoys all the things which are there without offering anything in return. He's not saying don't enjoy, but he's saying, please don't withhold your thankfulness. If you don't register it to the real entity, the real one that is manifesting all of this, then it's equivalent to being a thief. Now, Patanjali Yoga Sutras gives us 5 great formulas, moral precepts that everybody, regardless, has to follow. All your requirement is to be human. And part and parcel of that is, please do not steal. Don't be a thief. We can now see a much deeper meaning. It's not just don't go and rob a house, or don't go and take something that is not yours. Not on the surface anyway. Don't take something that is not yours, mentally or physically, but then nothing is yours. So without a thankful attitude, you can't really usefully proceed in life. Then there's one important statement here. There's the 35th stanza of the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It says, Shreyan Swadharmo Viyuganaha Paradharmat Swani Tustitat. Better is one's own dharma, Swadharme Nidhanam Shreyaha Paradharmo Payavahaha. Better is one's own duty, one's own dharma, one's own inherent skill, uniqueness contained essentially in the central part of your DNA. Your whole uniqueness expressed in your individual fingerprints. There's something that you can do, only you can do. Nobody else can do it. Nobody else has done it. Nobody else will do it. Part of a divine plan. Though if you do somebody else's job, somebody else's swadharma, individual dharma, individual activity that brings a sense of harmony and balance to everything, if you do something that you're not meant to do, even though well-intentioned, though imperfectly performed, your own duty, though imperfectly performed, is much better than doing somebody else's duty. Better is one's own dharma, though imperfectly performed, than the dharma of another well performed. Better is death in following one's own dharma. The dharma of another is full of fear. Because naturally, dharma means the thing that holds things tightly together in a rhythmic, systematic, beautiful way, harmonized way. If you upset that harmony, then you're in trouble. So now every person has an individual purpose. And we have to find it out. It will be natural to us. What do we enjoy the most? Sometimes I am asked to give some career advice, or ask, please can you guide somebody? They're looking, what should they study at university, or what should they do in life, and so on. And I give them some kind of questionnaire, you see. What interests you the most? What do you find the most pleasure in doing? And broadly, two types of people are there, registered in the academic world as the arts and the sciences. So are you more inclined toward this or inclined toward that? What is your natural propensity? When we don't think that it begins when you're born, because there's a nature-nurture factor going on, no doubt. One technically is called guna, the other one is called karma. So what do we inherit? What do we carry over from all our experience previously? And that sets a base. And then how will we use that? And final question to them is, how will you use that for the good of others, for the benefit of others? So we'd find that there is some individual place for us. And I think that children should be told this also. When I go to schools, it's what I say. I get them to say, okay, does everybody have fingerprints here? They all look, yes, yes, we have it. Well, these ridges on your fingers are completely different from those of your child next door. Your friend next door doesn't have these ones. Now, you can't see them obviously, but at schools, they do something called finger painting. And when you do the finger painting and compare the two, you're going to easily see that no two ridges are the same. It's a mark of your individuality. Then I tell them, before you were born, these ridges were never seen. And when you die, they will never be seen again. There is something you can do that nobody ever has done. Nobody can do now, and nobody can ever do in the future. Swami Vivekananda says, we see the world as we are. Do not talk of the wickedness of the world and all its sins. Weep that you are bound to sin. Weep that you are bound to see sin everywhere. And if you want to help the world, do not condemn it. Do not weaken it more. For what is sin? What is misery? And what are all these but the results of weakness? The world is made weaker and weaker every day by such teachings. Men are taught from childhood that they are weak and sinners. Teach them that they are all glorious children of immortality. What a beautiful, wonderful message. Expressed as only Swami Vivekananda can express it. Even those who are the weakest in manifestation, let positive, strong, helpful thoughts enter into their brains from their very childhood. Lay yourself open to these thoughts and not to weakening and paralyzing ones. Say to your own minds, I am He, I am He. Pure, free, immortal spirit, let it ring day and night in your minds, like a song, and at the point of death declare, I am He. That is the truth. The infinite strength of the world is yours. Drive out the superstition that has covered your minds. Let us be brave. Know the truth and practice the truth. The goal may be distant, but awake, arise, and stop not till the goal is reached. They're very inspiring, elevating words. Think all of you, he says, that you are the infinitely powerful Atman, and see what strength comes out. Self-deprecating. What is it for? I am the child of the infinite, the all-powerful Divine Mother. What means disease or fear or want to me? Stamp out the negative spirit as if it were a pestilence, and it will conduce to your welfare in every way. No negative, all positive, affirmative. I am God. I am. God, I am. God is everything, is in me. I will manifest health, purity, knowledge, whatever I want. Thou art energy, impart energy unto me. Thou art strength, impart strength unto me. Thou art spirituality, impart spirituality unto me. Thou art fortitude, impart fortitude unto me. One must think of oneself as strong and invulnerable. So this is the wonderful positive message that is behind all our thinking and behind all our work and all our activities. Negativity creates negativity. And negativity can happen in every second if we're not careful. It is intrinsically deep in our unconscious and tends to come out first. What I often say is, you see, when a child comes out of the mother's womb, it is apparently not so happy about it. The first thing is it cries. Now, there's a physiological reason for that. You have to clear the lungs of all the mucus and what have you. Fine. And the lungs have to operate for the first time in a burst of life. But clearly, things are strange. Our introduction to the world is, oh my goodness, I was warm, now I'm cold. Things were dark, now things are bright. Things were silent and distant, now they're all noisy. It's a strange world. Also, I had to pass through this narrow channel, head first, into life. So that has to turn around because any other formula won't work. Instead of then rushing toward an obstacle and hurting ourselves, like crashing against a stone wall, we need to play the game and find positively a way around it. It is there available to us. In terms of what is the difference between Maya and Mahamaya? So Maya is our technical term which says things are not what they seem to be. So Maya is a statement of fact. Mahamaya is that entity that produces it. The great Maya, that is the term that is used for the divine energy that produces all of this, with the capacity of hiding things from us, projecting the world, and also revealing it. And we can divide this into two aspects. That is Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. That is that entity, that form of divine manifested energy that keeps us in ignorance. And that form that reveals us. This is our mother. It's put in feminine form. So this is nature, comprising these three evolutionary forces. So the two terms signify two things. Maya is the fact of life, the fact that we are in darkness and ignorance, the fact that things are not what they seem, the fact that we are looking at things through an apparitional lens. And Mahamaya, the one who produces it and the one who can rescue us from all of this. So in this system, there is no creator-creation separate. There is the one creative force, and that also is the one that has the capacity to reveal itself to us and reveal the highest principle also to us. So now, if we say that these three evolutionary forces that we mentioned earlier, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are there, of course there could be a question, why does this great divine energetic entity, this mother of the entire universe, if we put it in feminine form, why delude us? Is it a cruel joke on ourselves? Why should a loving mother do this to us? It's a similar question to saying, if there is a creator God, then this creation is a miserable thing. There is a lot of suffering. How is it a child's fault? And of course, the Vedanta will answer with the whole understanding of causal law, that there is karma, that the only difficulty that we have in this life is principally caused by our own self. But why from birth? Because it is a continuation of a previous set of events that produced this for us. the creator-creation, this duality moves along, it develops. It's a good starting position in every religion, but it develops, it soon occurs to us, there is a connectedness. I think I may have mentioned previously, there is an author and lecturer called Keith Ward, and he is a former Oxford professor in theology, and he also studied Ramanuja. And he says Christianity is a form of the qualified non-dualism, this Vishishtadvaita that we find in Ramanuja's teaching. Then he makes a reasoning for it. And he says, you see, in the Christian Gospels, you have John's Gospel, you have this prologue. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now that Word, every Christian takes to be Christ. And so that was God means that Christ is God. The anointed Messiah and God is the same entity theologically. Then he quotes about 24 passages that St. Paul gives, saying, we are parts of the body of Christ. That means we are parts of God. There you have your Vishishtadvaita. So that's another advancement, another level of evolution, spiritual evolution, until we finally come to this understanding. There are no two. And Jesus would have expressed it first in dualistic language, the Father in heaven, an entity separate. And then I am the vine, you are the branches. You are part of me. And then ultimately, I and the Father are one, representing all three philosophical approaches: dualism, qualified non-dualism, and absolute non-dualism. We are essentially all dualists and qualified non-dualists, but we keep in mind non-dualism as a principle to be realized and as an all-purpose tool that helps us to deal with problems. And all of these are various tools that we can use. So this is the answer to this question about Maya and Mahamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.